People who come out of relationships with a narcissist often ask themselves this question: how does the earth even bear them? Why do they torment other people? Yet it seems to roll off them like water off a duck's back, as they say. Does the evil they cause to those around them ever come back to them? Does the same boomerang law apply to them? That's what we're going to talk about today. I am psychologist Yuliia Latunenko, and I have been working with psychological traumas for almost 18 years. I am also a family psychologist and an individual psychologist, and I work with psychosomatics. Like, subscribe and comment. I really appreciate any of your activity. Does evil return to narcissists? Narcissism is a formation in a person's personality that is evil in itself. Why? Because a narcissist cannot empathize, because a narcissist lacks empathy, because they are cold and cruel. They are indifferent to your feelings and your needs. All they care about is themselves. They are in love with themselves. A narcissist uses people solely from the perspective of how useful they can be to them, on how much they provide and what they need. And what does a narcissist need? A narcissist desperately needs respect, recognition, and affirmation of their greatness. You know, they really love their admirers. Those who grovel before them are the narcissist's best friends. Very often narcissists achieve success, financial success, wealth, power, and fame. And it may seem that they are the happiest people on earth. But for some reason, they're always dissatisfied with everything. And even when they have everything, yes, everything in the material world that would be very valuable, for example, to a person who is just making ends meet, yes, and they might envy the narcissist. Why is he dissatisfied with everything? Why, having such wealth, is he still such a grumbler? He is always grumbling. He criticizes everything. He condemns everything. He, looks like a very unhappy person. And no matter what a narcissist achieves in his life, he will still remain unsatisfied. Because in his intrapsychic space, there is simply emptiness. He is not there. And sometimes he is compared to a very beautiful candy wrapper from which someone has already eaten the candy and just wrapped the wrapper back, creating a fake candy, right? That's how a narcissist is. He is empty inside. He feels sad there. He feels bored there. He often experiences apathy, depression, yes. Because a narcissist constantly criticizes. He criticizes people, he criticizes his own achievements. He always wants to achieve more and more, because he is focused only on what he doesn't have. And he doesn't pay attention to what he does have, and he devalues it. But when his self-esteem drops, he tries to remember all his victories. And then he starts to inflate himself, devalue other people, and has a very elevated attitude towards himself. He behaves very arrogantly towards people and acts pompously, yes. Therefore, this person generally does not feel happiness or satisfaction, even if she has great success. She does not feel satisfaction or happiness from it. She might momentarily feel a bit of satisfaction when she for example, buys a new expensive car or receives a very high position, and this pleases the narcissist's self-esteem and self-respect. And this is a very momentary thing in the life of a narcissist, when they feel such an uplift and fall into their grandiose part. But this inner emptiness, then that kind of nausea, yes, he feels bored, such inner apathy and lack of interest in life, in people, because he is only interested in himself. This leads to the fact that sometimes a narcissist does end up in a psychologist's office, because generally a narcissist says something like, "Oh, what can she tell me? I already taught where she studied." Yes, if he receives a suggestion from someone to go to a psychologist. But when he falls into his own kind of melancholy and depression, which is very characteristic of a narcissist, he might come. And his complaints are about such emptiness, about the lack of interest in life. Among the main experiences of a narcissist are feelings of shame, envy, and jealousy. These are such negative experiences that he feels when his self-esteem drops and he starts competing with other people, and he cannot acknowledge that all people are different. Yes, some have better traits in some areas, and in some areas he has some successes. Yes, he doesn't look at life that way. He sees it as I'm a winner or I've lost. Yes, for him it's very important to compete and compare himself with others. And God forbid you to lose in this competition. It should also be mentioned that every narcissist is periodically hit by paranoia, because they are prone to such paranoid states. They often turn out to be very jealous. Yes, they think that their partner has gone somewhere and already found someone better. So they start to control the partner, doing everything to make the partner submissive, yes, controllable. That's it. And this paranoia, which periodically bombards every narcissist, is dictated by the fact that the narcissist is unaware of the hostility with which they treat others. They treat people, their surroundings, with such contempt, and they cannot admit this. They are not aware of it. So they detach this hostility and seemingly attach it to other people, meaning they project this hostility onto others who appear in their surroundings. And now the world is bad, the world is hostile, everyone is against me. Yes, just like paranoids do, everyone wants to betray me. And then on top of that comes black toxic envy. And the deed is done. Self-esteem drops, and the narcissist begins to move along the path of compensating for that low self-esteem. They cannot admit it to show that they are in a weak state. He is scared, so he starts to devalue those around him. He criticizes, he makes remarks, he lectures, he behaves arrogantly and condescendingly towards people who are near him, just to compensate for his self-esteem by belittling others. And you will never know when his self-esteem dropped. He suddenly, unexpectedly becomes toxic. And this will mean for you that something has already happened. Somewhere he has already compared himself, lost in that competition, envied, and started compensating at the expense of those around him by belittling everyone. This is such an eternal struggle of the narcissist, which destroys not only those people who find themselves next to him, it also destroys himself. He lives in a hell created by himself. He lives constantly feeling negative. The spectrum of feelings inherent to the narcissist, I have already mentioned. These are jealousy, envy, shame, as well as anger and a very great fear that his self-esteem will fall in front of others. Therefore, this is such a narcissistic hell, such a narcissistic mess that haunts the narcissist throughout his life. Therefore, if we ask whether evil returns to the narcissist, we can say that here he lives even from the very beginning, from his first days in evil. Because a narcissist is someone who has experienced abuse from their parents. Abuse that is either physical or emotional. Most often it is emotional abuse. Such parents devalued, humiliated, and used him. And this child felt worthless their entire life. This experience is carried into their adult life, and this experience makes them toxic. He destroys it because he has already been destroyed by his parents. And then there's this emptiness that haunts, a black, gray kind of emptiness. You could say that if a narcissist at the beginning of the relationship, at the start of the relationship, was gentle, tender, he seemed to you so caring, so sensitive, they don't actually feel any of this. They only show all this because back in childhood with their parents, they learned not to feel. He is called inside. He learned not to feel anything, but only to demonstrate and show these feelings. They learn in which situations to show certain feelings and play very well. Because they are excellent actors, these narcissists. But you might argue with me that narcissists often resort to such aggressive outbursts. Well, those are the kind of narcissists who are closer to a psychopathic personality type. And now I will explain to you what happens with a narcissist. But before I do that, I want to remind you that I really look forward to your support in the form of your subscriptions to my channel, as well as your likes and comments. For example, Uchi, I was very interested to learn how you dealt with such narcissistic scenarios if you were in a relationship with a narcissist, or perhaps your parents are narcissists. Write about how you coped with it and how you recovered after the relationship. Or maybe you are still in such a relationship. I would be very glad to read your comments and will respond to each one. So about narcissistic outbursts. When a narcissist, or she loses control, they yell at you and tell you that you made them this way. Does a narcissist actually feel anger? Yes, they do feel anger because they are prone to this negative spectrum of emotions, but they also feel this anger over prolonged period of time. And they try to hide these outbursts because they are somewhat embarrassed by such uncontrolled emotions afterward. But now they shift the responsibility for this onto you. When they try to hide their anger, irritation, dissatisfaction, they become passive-aggressive. This is where their toxicity lies. They can suddenly make a very mean joke. They can devalue you with just one phrase, say something that will make you feel very bad afterwards. That's why they are passive-aggressive by nature, and they don't even realize where that anger comes from, because they are generally an unaware person. Their development, their level of development is at a very low level. And when they resort to such passive-aggressive attacks on your dignity in subtle ways or indirectly, it can be their way of getting revenge. Yes, for their self-esteem dropping in your presence or near you in a manner that is not immediately obvious or apparent to others, causing them to experience shame, which can lead to feelings of inadequacy or inferiority in them. They defend themselves from shame with aggression, revenge, hatred. I have just described to you the hell in which narcissists live. So, is it appropriate to ask whether evil returns to the narcissist? They simply do not leave that state of evil that they experience and cause to other people. The narcissist feels inherently unhappy. They live by suffering and causing suffering to other people, but they have another interesting pain point which I will tell you about now. But let me remind you that I am eagerly awaiting your subscriptions. And another pain point for the narcissist is their responsibility. In general, the concept of responsibility, or if you say to them something like, well, take responsibility already, yeah, it's like a red rag to a bull, or charging at a matador. They simply cannot stand the word responsibility because they have an outwardly accusatory stance. They are good, everyone else is bad. It's impossible to prove something to them in a way that makes them take responsibility or apologize. But they only apologize when they feel it might be beneficial. A narcissist's apology is never sincere. A person who certainly cannot take responsibility for their feelings, actions, or words is deeply dissatisfied and unhappy because they live in constant tension and anticipation that someone will hold them accountable. And they are very focused on avoiding responsibility, which causes them additional suffering. You might argue with me and say, well, what about narcissists? There are many who are rich and successful, right? By the way, among the rich and successful, there are 4 times more narcissists and psychopaths than among people with average income. So you might argue, yes, and tell me that if you have money, then you are already happy. But if you think that way, then it's a question for you about your own values. Happiness should not depend on how much money is in your wallet, because happiness is here and now. The portal to happiness, to a happy state, is open here and now in reality. But a narcissist cannot be in reality. They are never here and now. They are generally in their own projections. They very often and strongly project their past experiences into the present. That's why they can't be here and now. That's why they are unhappy. And I understand those people who have left relationships with a narcissist. And sometimes they go to his page and wait, well, when will he be unhappy? But he just keeps getting richer and richer, fatter, right? And he looks more and more arrogant there on his Instagram. So it's completely inappropriate to ask such a question. Does evil return to the narcissist? Because he is the evil. Because that's how it is. His entire existence is evil. But a small remark. Narcissists can actually be the best rescuers because they love fame, they love heroism, and sometimes they do manage to do some positive things in life. But don't be mistaken, they do it not to do the best for other people, but to support their own self-esteem, self-respect. And even if they desperately save you, do good deeds, they will later reproach you with it because they do it for themselves. So sometimes narcissists can still be used because they are focused on fame and heroism. So subscribe to my channel. I will be very happy with any of your activity on my channel. Likes, comments, and sharing my videos are very welcome.